Hello, everybody. Welcome to our weekly Subspace Developer Sync. I'm going to change things up a little bit this week, and I'm going to start us off. So starting, I'm going to give an overview of how the protocol moved forward last week. The main thing I'm going to discuss is Gemini 3C. We did get that launched internally with the dev team, mostly I think the core protocol team. We'll be getting more status updates on that today from Nazar and Yvonne. But I know, generally speaking, the CLI is blocked while we're still working on the SDK update, which is also essentially blocked by DSN optimizations. Nazar and Yvonne will give some insight into that. Also, VED was testing cross-domain messaging. I think that maybe showed some issues with domains that VED will be able to give some updates on that and kind of discuss some, how we'll move forward with Gemini 3C or if it's going to require another kind of breaking update and update rate to 3D. So my last week was spent catching up on a lot of things from kind of the 3 weeks being gone, the quiet week, and then the leadership offsite. Went through a lot of resumes. So we have a few open positions. As a reminder, internal recommendations are greatly appreciated. So if if you can go look at what our open positions are, it would be great. Any recommendations from you guys for those roles, I'd greatly appreciate. My primary goal this week is going to be get a solid plan together, excuse me, for our outward-facing engineering handbook that is to be delivered by quarter end. I kind of discussed this a bit in the all hands last week. Many of you have already been contributing in various ways to what I put together that's more of an internal one. That's really been note gathering at this point. But now we're going to kind of transition to from note gathering to actual production, using a lot of those notes and kind of putting together a new structure. So this week I hope to have published an updated structure for the handbook, along with a plan of how we're going to accomplish getting that out by the end of the quarter. This project's not going to be just me doing all the writing and getting everything together. It's going to require everybody's contributions. So many of you have already contributed to what we have. I'll be tagging many of you for specific areas. In addition, once it's out there, feel free to jump in, review, give ideas, and such. Finally, I thought I'd touch on ChatGPT just because I've seen like a lot of us have been playing with that. It's got some really cool stuff. So I thought I'd put it to the test as a dad putting together or trying to get a dad joke. So I asked it actually for a dad joke, a blockchain related dad joke. This is what it came up with. So why did the blockchain cross the road? To decentralize the other side. So personally, I think comedians might be safe for a while. So that was anyway. So with all that, we'll get going with updates from everybody. Nazar, could you kick us off?
Yes, last week we've started with almost started with Gemini 3C. There was a lot of preparation before that on the DSN side and otherwise. And after we launched it, we have noticed more things, and we were working hard on fixing those. I have landed like 5 or 7 pull requests with different changes to improve things. Basically, we were going the brute force route. We were pulling things when we didn't need. We were announcing everything, even though we announced it 100 times before. So the path was like, we need to plot this piece. We already have it in the cache, but we are making lookup on the DSN. We are finding someone who has that piece. We are downloading that, and then we are announcing it again, even though we already have it in the cache and announced. So like a lot of inefficiencies of that kind. And those were resulting in a lot of warnings. It was working, but it was not very performant, and it was also very noisy. So many of those things were fixed, and from our testing, it is greatly improved, and we will be launching or like making a new snapshot of Gemini 3C with some of those fixes incorporated. One observation on the network is that we have about 15 nodes at any point, but we have 0 farmers. So unless I'm running the farmer, there is no farmers, and DSN is not really D. So that is something to keep in mind if you are trying to sync. You may see errors about pieces not retrieved. That's because no one has it. So we will probably need to think about that some more, and maybe encourage everyone on the team to actually run those farmers, such that we can have the network functioning. Otherwise, I've been also working a little bit on refactoring what we had on the farmer, because Ivan was working on SDK side to incorporate all of those updates, and that was quite painful, I believe, for him, due to large amount of things he had to copy paste. And I was working on refactoring, restructuring it a little bit, such that it is more or less reusable, but also allows to inject logic when it needs to be injected on the SDK side. And I believe the last pull request should be really, really helpful for Ivan to make code base smaller, make management easier, and also our binary side of the farmer is much easier to read as well. So that will be, I think, still focus of this week, to make further improvements and see how it behaves.
So I was attempting to run a farmer. We had some messages back and forth about this in the Dart. I was actually never successful. Has anybody else run a farmer? You mentioning that nobody's running farmers made me wonder if I wasn't the only one.
No, I had no issues with farmer.
Okay.
Me neither. I run a farm. I can run a farm as well.
Okay. I guess we should be running those then. And maybe, so I'll touch base with you, Nazar. Maybe it's networking issues on my side, that I had stuff not set up correctly. So cool. Shamil.
Most of the last week I spent debugging and testing our testnet. Also, I reviewed a lot of PRs from Nazar and tested also some of their PR code. And in the interim between those activities, I managed to make some progress in the block importing task. I had a solution currently, and I probably encountered a bug in our consensus crates. I will discuss it with Nazar later. So that was my week, and the next week I probably will continue to support different improvements for the networking. And I'm not sure about my next task yet. Probably it would be a preparation. It could be a preparation for the NAT traversal task. That could be the first step of that is a NAT detection. So this is my kind of plan for the next week. Thank you.
Rahul.
Yeah. So one update on the KZG library performance I was looking into. So the CKZG is at a logical point where we have a good understanding of the numbers with and without multi-threading. Then I spent a day looking at the Rust implementation of the KZG, where I discovered like we are actually running with parallelism enabled. We were somehow thinking like we are running a single-threaded version, but turns out we are actually running with multi-threaded enabled. So I was able to compare the numbers with and without multi-threading on the Rust implementation by forking the crates. So it turns out the CKZG is still much faster than the Rust KZG that we currently use. So I was talking to Nazar about this. So we need to kind of make a decision at some point which one to use, and should we create wrappers around the CKZG whenever we get to it. So that is that. Apart from that, I'm working on 2 other things. Okay, while I'm there, one other thing is like we have to decide if you want to fix that problem where we are running the binaries with the unexpected feature flags for parallelism. So we need to, that's a to-do that came out of that thing. And apart from that, I started working on 2 other things. Nazar asked me to look at an issue where some nodes get stuck sometimes when they try to resume. So I started looking into that. And I also synced with Jeremiah last week in Hacker House. So I'm working on a proposal to for the compact block design. So we're looking at like 2-3 different ideas, some research papers. So I'm trying to come up with a comparison between the different schemes and maybe come up with a formal proposal. so that we can start a formal spec process and maybe start the implementation. So that's it for me.
Great. Ved.
Hey everyone. Last week mostly spent on debugging or at least testing out transporter and moving funds between the domains. Right now we just only have core and system, so I was just trying to do that. Overall, it's fine, but there were some issues where we were not able to verify a bunch of messages because the state roots are actually missing because of the way how we inject the state roots. We were just injecting them at the best known tip rather than injecting all of the state roots that are between the best known tip and last updated. So there could be a bunch of state roots that might be missing. So the last one is X and the best known tip of the system domain is at X plus N. We just inject X and X plus N, but we don't inject the state roots between them. So if any messages that were created in one of that particular block, we just end up not having the state roots to be verified. So the message gets rejected completely. So it doesn't make to the it doesn't make it to the runtime. So that should be fixed. And I'm currently working on the fix for that. There is also one more issue that we found between the system domain and the code domain. When the system domain forks, code domain doesn't fork accordingly because we always rely on the latest tip of the system domain rather than tracing back and then uh, and then uh, and then using and then following the actual canonical chain. So that is something that we still need to discuss more. Lushan did start a notes on that and potential solution for it as well. Would be great if we could get some feedback on that and potentially think about the next steps. That's pretty much my week this week, and maybe if there is any infra changes, that shouldn't be a lot more as well. Yeah, that's my end.
Is this going to, so these fixes that you've been working on, Ved, are they going to require a network reset?
So some of them would require, again, depends, like we could go and try and keep the changes minimal so that we don't have to do a network reset. But a straightforward one would be to just break the API because some APIs are missing uh, because we did not have them as part of the previous runtime itself. And some client changes were also coming in. So we could go the long route and slowly do an upgrade path.
Okay.
And if you want to deploy this quickly and test it out quick, then we can go the shortest route. So right now, my current changes are thinking the shortest route in mind. But again, adapting them to the longer one should be straightforward as well.
Is this something we can test in XNet or in some sort of dev network environment prior to?
Yeah, that's one more thing that I want to bring up. Like if we could already start using the XNet to actually deploy this, so do intermediate releases and test it out on XNet that has potentially maybe a farmer running as well, so that we can actually uh, push those changes and maybe purge the network if required, and then test out and then do a Gemini 3D or whichever release that we think of down the line.
And then a bigger question, and maybe we can discuss this later, but to keep in mind, and Jeremiah, your input will be wanted here, is like how far do we want to move with 3C towards the community if we know that we're going to be bringing in a breaking change? Do we just continue to run 3C internally for a little while? So some direction on that at some point, Jeremiah, would be good. All right, Parth.
Yeah, so from my end, lot of things. So I made changes to XCL specification as per Jeremiah's feedback. Started looking into Ethereum 2.0 Light Client, went through the consensus specification in detail, created a Notion document highlighting the major case, including the diagram. Now, also found some good implementation of the specification. The decision that I'm going to be making today is either taking the Solidity implementation as it is, using the Frontier set of palettes to have a limited EVM environment on Substrate, or either implementing this in Rust. Implementing it in Rust is actually simpler because the specification is written in form of code, so it's just matter of translating the Python to Rust. Depending upon which outcome I come up with, I will start implementing latest by tomorrow.
That conversion of Python to Rust might be an interesting test for ChatGPT.
Yeah.
All right. We can move into product. Serge, how are things?
Yeah, so I was mostly working on the UI issues for the Block Explorer, and currently I'm working on the dark mode implementation, which is a little bit fancier than the default mode. So probably I will keep working on this this week as well.
End-to-end tests, where are we? I know I got in and was looking at them, but then I feel like maybe got distracted. Where are we with that?
I would like to keep it as a draft PR for now until we have some issues like optimized on the Subspace node side.
Okay.
Because currently setup is it's hard to automate,
Right.
so it doesn't really bring any benefit.
So, and I did open an issue for Lu Chang as far as setting the dev mode to being one block deep on the confirmation. So hopefully when he's back, he can get that done pretty quickly. Natasha.
Yeah. Last week I was working on the GitHub workflow for end-to-end tests on the UI. Finally get it working, and also spent some time working on some of the issues that Serge created for the UI. And this week I will spend some time creating a little bit more tests. And yeah, basically that's it for my side.
Great. Ivan?
Yeah. So hi everyone. So basically last week I was working on the like importing all the changes from a monorepo into the SDK. So currently I have a PR open which doesn't include like all of the updates and optimizations by Nazar, but I almost like imported them. Currently, yeah, I just approved the last PR of Nazar, and trying to like remove and remove most of the things from the SDK so that it will be cleaner. Basically I faced a bug like during the last week which like prevented the release, I guess. So basically I guess pieces weren't announced on the SDK end. So I'll dig into that later. Right now I just think about like reverting like sharing the networking instance between like Node and Farmer, so that like it could be implemented later, but at least now we would have some somewhat working version. So that's it on my end. I guess this week I'll fix that bug and generally work on the implementing again, sharing the subspace networking instance between Node and Farmer. That's it on my end.
All right. Great. Ozgun.
Hello. Updated the Rust version as per monorepo, and updated some dependencies that were alerted by the dependabot for moderate security issues. Cargo lock files changed a lot, and back then it was caused some issues with Windows, so I manually triggered Windows workflow. We are good. Gemini 3C changes are made. I tested it today for the CLI. It works. I only got a slight bug, but since SDK is still changing, I don't know it will be reproducible, so I didn't report it yet. And also we had a farming bug previously, like it was hard for me like it was getting stuck every 5 to 10% when I was trying to sync, and that bug is gone, which is good news. I'm able to sync with a great experience at the moment. Aside from that, I'm spending time on reading the reports for the offsite and some internal documents, and that's all.
That farming, the syncing stopping bug, is that the Nazar? Was that a CLI bug, or was that a one that Nazar fixed? Or Nazar and Shamil, the DSN syncing?
Yeah, probably with DSN syncing it got resolved. I meant syncing bug, especially.
Got it. Okay, that's great. All right, R&D, Daria.
Last week has been a lot of housekeeping. I've been mostly we're answering questions that people, especially Nazar, had on the spec, getting out answers also from Chen and Jeremiah, trying to clarify the things that we still have not really nailed down in terms of parameters, or whether some points we would be hashing or XORing, a lot of those technical details. I have been working on the flowcharts and all the other charts and diagrams explaining new consensus farming and plotting. And I have been working on the slide deck for the presentation that I would be giving next week about consensus V2 to our engineering and the greater team internally. And the idea of this deck is to be reusable, so we can use it and in the future for further more public talks, presenting our new consensus. And I will be doing a dry run of it with a couple of people like Chen, Jeremiah, Nazar this week before going to the outer team. So I'm working mostly on that now.
Jeremiah, you have anything to add? Research?
No, I'll cover my updates after the recording, Jeremy.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Justin.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. On my end, so last week we spent some time getting resituated with the community team. We had a meeting with Jeremiah to reestablish our Q1 goals for 2023. I personally was working on some Discord things. We redid the onboarding experience, re-implemented some, or redid the channel organization layout, and basically got that reset up to be a lot better for the new users coming on. We also had some PRs that were merged and submitted by Ryan for the documentation, just some minor fixes that have been open for a little bit. So we got those going as well. This week, we'll be moving forward into working with the community team on some of the goals that were set by Jeremiah and the team for Q1, and just getting ready for some of the exciting things coming up with the new testnet.
Great. Well, that's everybody. Appreciate anybody tuning in on YouTube to watch this, and we will see all of you next week.